Alright, what we're working on today is a 2004 Chevrolet Silverado 2500 with a diesel engine. It's got 109,427 on the clock, and if I was to crank this thing up, you'll notice that the only gauge that works is the tachometer. I guess the transmission temperature gauge may be working, but we haven't run it long enough to get that up, and I haven't seen the speedometer move while I was driving. But all the lights on the right hand side of the dash and the battery lights stay on. I have check codes, and you should see in just a minute the dreaded no response, no communication, all that good stuff. You see it skipped over the powertrain control module, so it's not communicating with them. Anti-lock has got no response. Every other module in the vehicle will try to be read, but nothing happens, and I wind up with just the anti-lock brake system, no response. And of course you go to that and there's no code there because there's no response. And so I have to treat this as what it is a communication fault. And I have another tool that really helps in that. And it's this tool right here. And what it does is it connects through cabling to the bus connector behind the left side of the dash. Kind of hard to get up in there. Maybe I'll get a picture of it later or something. Can't even see if I can wiggle it in there. But anyways, I've got that tied in, and what this does, it has a test port to test voltages on the communication line or the data line for the particular computer. It also shows if you've got a short to ground or a short to power. And then you've got the switches down below that allow you to turn the particular lines on and off. And what we're looking at as far as the nomenclature with the alphabet or letters is we're looking at this bus connector. Let's see what they call it. It's a Splice Pack 205 inline instrument panel harness. I think some people call it a star connector also. But you're looking along here and it tells you what color wire is on each terminal and what module it goes to. I've been working with this a little while, and I have found that you can turn off, well, let me do something different here a second. I'm tapped into any one of these test points and I'm getting 6.677, getting 6.6 plus or minus volts on those lines. So somewhere along the way we have at least 5 volts, probably the full 6. Sometimes I see it oscillating up to 8 volts shorted to one of these data lines. So what we have to do is we have to go one at a time and turn the switches off and on. We'll start with A. Turned it off. And you see we've got a flashing indicator on that. That means that's got communication on that line now where we didn't have before. And at the terminal C we still have 6 volts. At terminal A though, we have a fluctuating voltage of between roughly 0.3 and 1 volt, which is normal oscillation for a communication line on this truck. So we can assume that that one line is okay. Now it's time to go through one at a time and continue turning them off and see what we get. Seeing how I'm going to be doing this in alphabetical order, I'm going to go ahead and stick this one terminal down here to what is that, M, and then as I turn the lines on and off, we'll watch the voltage. Turning B off. Let me go get another connector real quick. Okay, I wanted to get a clamp on ground wire so I wouldn't have to sit there and hold that thing while doing everything else here. So we've turned off B with no difference in the voltage. Let's turn off C. No change. D, no change. E, it's fluctuated for a second, but it's right back to 6 volts and jumping. F, G, H did something. So we're going to go back and turn the other ones off that we're going to go back and turn the terminals back on that I'd already turned off, except for that H. And now we've got what looks like a fairly normal range for voltage for the communication lines. All of the switches are turned on except for H. Now let's see if we can get any kind of communication with the scan tool. And by the way, the gauges on the right hand side have popped up and started working. Now hopefully we're going to get some sort of a, hey, there you go. We're communicating with the PCM now, and I guess probably the TCM as well. Communicate with the ABS. It'll take a minute or two for it to go through everything here, so I'll probably fast forward through this so you won't have to suffer through watching all of it, unless you just like suffering through watching all of it. Creeping up to almost 50%. If we look back over here, the bus line is still active. Our voltages are staying relatively low and fluctuating. Sometimes you see a little bit of spike there and you think, well, something's going on, but that's just the scan tool going through its deal, checking different modules, so there's a little bit of change in voltage when it engages and disengages the link. And we are up to, what are we up to? 61%. And we've gone through 9 modules so far. Which, by the way, we've got 12 different connectors that we check at one time. So in theory, we could get as many as 12 different modules show up on this. It's not guaranteed that you have the same number of modules as you have terminals, because sometimes 2 modules will be on one terminal, sometimes there'll be nothing there because of options. But I'm expecting that we're going to have between 10 and 12 on there now, and we're getting closer to being there. We're at 80%. And I haven't looked to see what's on terminal H. Yeah, we got 10 modules we're talking to so far. Let's hope we can get 11 at least. I don't know what happened there. I hit a button and it stopped recording. But we're at 100% now. And we've got 11 modules that have been read. And let's see what terminal J goes to. Not J. It's terminal H. Terminal H is dark blue and white wire, goes to a junction point, then splits and goes to the memory seat module and to the inflatable restraint sensing and diagnostic module, both being under the left front seat. This truck does not have memory seat, because if it did, it would have buttons right in here, 1, 2, and pictures of seats and seat heaters and all that kind of stuff. So on these model trucks, that would be on a truck that has leather seats that have heat on them. So it looks like we're talking about the airbag module is bad. So let's look at these codes, their quick report, and see how many of these things have to do with not being able to communicate with the airbag module. Well, there's a class 2 data link high. That was a pass and fail. And that's because with that module, the airbag module tied in there, it's actually sending power there. Oops. The strange thing I'm seeing right now is I'm not seeing any loss of communications with the airbag module. Isn't that interesting? And every one of those things I would think would have some, particularly the BCM would have a link to that. So what I'm going to do right now is do a quick erase. And it's going through and doing its thing. And I'm going to have to look and see if the airbag module is accessible without pulling the seat out. A lot of times there's just a little flap in the carpet that you can go through. And unless it's on the back side, this don't look like one. And I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's a pretty obvious mud line right there. So there's a significant chance, you know, that could just be years of dirt and mud collecting, but there's a real good chance that there's been water in the bottom of the cab and it's got to that module. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to get all this lined up to where you can see it or not. But if you look up in that hole where that yellow is, that's the plug going to the airbag module. And if you look to the wires to the right and all that green and white powder on the floor, that's corrosion. So we're going to have to pull the seat out and see what's going on up under there. I wish I could get a little bit better picture of that. There we go. About as good as we're going to get until we take the seat out. And that's also interesting, that bolt is halfway out. As is that one. Look at all the rust down there. Yes, so you've gone through back through and rechecked them, and everything passes except for the powertrain and the heating control module. And that shows the TCM has requested the MIL illumination and a problem with the recirc door. And boys and girls, I think we found a problem. I don't think I've ever seen one quite as bad as that. And still have the truck in decent shape. Woo, doggies. One small detail I wanted to mention, if you notice I got tape wrapped around this, and I've got a C with an arrow pointing to a terminal and a J. And what you have to do is when you plug this up, because it would actually plug up either way, you have to make sure it's aligned where the C matches C on the body connector and the J matches J, because if not, the order here will not be accurate, and then you're going to be fighting yourself and not knowing what to do. It shows as having, you know, an alignment tab right there and nothing right there, but unfortunately there's two slots on the connector, one on both sides. It can go in either way, at least on the ones that I've worked with. That's why I've gone ahead and put this tape on there and marked it so I know which way is which, so I'll always know where A is and I'll always know where KLM is.